Before we get into this video, I will put a warning here. In this video I talk about sensitive topics such as abuse, murder and torture. If any of this stuff offends you or affects you in a negative way, I don't suggest watching this video. If you choose to watch anyway, proceed with caution. So I got back into the Hazbin hotel fandom the other day. In this video I will be talking about what Alastor's backstory might have been like before he died. Now with that said, please do not take what I say as canon. This is all just a headcanon to me that I made up because I was bored. There was also a few theories I took inspiration from here. If you have your own headcanons, that's fine. This is just mine. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear my fan in the background. It's kind of hot in this room. So, Alastor. Personally, he's my favourite in the pilot. He's the most interesting out of all of them, and while yes, I am curious about what the other characters' backstories are, but not as much as Alastor. One day while I was listening to music, I started to think of a possible backstory for Alastor, which I thought I'd share here because I kind of like where this is going. All the artwork shown here will be credited in the description. With that said, let's get into the backstory I made for him. So, Alastor was born in between the years 1898 and 1903. His age isn't given, all that is stated is that he died in his early 30s, so I can't pinpoint an exact year. He grew up in a small town in New Orleans, Louisiana. He was also born with bright red hair. Trust me, I'll mention it again later. He was raised into a cult and was kind of thrown into it at a very early age. His family would kidnap their victims, torture them and kill them. After that, they would use their organs to bake them into their food, often selling them to unsuspecting buyers. The reason nobody ever expected the family is because they always seemed so happy and jolly all the time, and always seemed so concerned for the families of a victim they killed. Also, about the cult itself, the cult consisted of a lot of Alastor's family and friends who were in on the torture and murder thing. Another thing to note, they were all sociopaths. The only one in the cult who wasn't a sociopath was Alastor. When he was younger, about 8 or so, his family started to threaten him. What I mean by this is that they wanted to stay as a joyful and happy family, but it didn't help that Alastor could not keep this act up for so long. Sometimes they would tie him up in the basement and threaten him much like they did to their other victims. They would rarely hurt him, but when they did it in such a way that Alastor would not have any scars, but would be in a lot of pain. After a while, Alastor learned to imitate his family, who would smile all the time, because the phrase, "you're never fully dressed without a smile," was often repeated to him. In fact, we can hear him say this in the pilot.
Smile, my dear! You know you're never fully dressed without one!
Like I said before, unlike his family, Alastor is not a sociopath. He has the ability to care and love others. However, he chooses who he wants to care about. He learned how to do this because his family soon tasked him with torturing and murdering his own victims. After killing his own victim, it broke him to lengths that he didn't think was possible. He did care about other people that he didn't even know. That was the problem. He was too sympathetic. That's why he tried to imitate his family, and it worked. Like I said before, Alastor is not a sociopath. He just chooses who he wants to care for. It made it easier for him in the long run. Later on, when he reached his teenage years, he would often be at the market by himself selling food that either him or his family made. But he was able to hear a radio a bit further down. After doing his job, he would investigate. After listening to the radio, he felt inspired to become a radio show host. At some point, he ended up buying a radio and taking it home. However, his family did not approve of this. They broke the small radio in front of him. Now, at this point, Alastor is most likely not very stable, so this was enough to push him over the edge. That night, he poisoned his family's food, killing them all. With the help of all the things that he was taught, he was able to dispose of their bodies effectively and ran away, never going back to that area. He also dyed his hair black, so people wouldn't be able to tell it's him. Soon enough, Alastor becomes a radio show host like he wanted to be. He still tortures and murders people, but this is mostly because of habit, and because since he chooses who to care for, he doesn't care for who he kills. At some point, he meets someone in a bar, a flapper girl called Mimzy. After a while of chat between the two, Alastor chooses that this is someone he does genuinely want to care about, even more so when he found out she enjoyed to kill too. Now, since Alastor is asexual, we can assume this relationship was just platonic. After maybe a couple of years, Mimzy starts to notice that Alastor is becoming increasingly unstable. Taking inspiration from a fan comic an artist on Instagram made, I'll put their account up right here, he ends up accidentally killing her after talking about how he didn't want to stop killing. After he killed her, the guilt was very overwhelming for him, as he just killed someone he genuinely cared a lot about, and someone who could see him for who he really was. Alastor killed a lot more after this, almost to vent his frustrations, when it soon came to a halt in 1933. Alastor had been wandering around the woods, perhaps searching for a human to kill, but ended up finding a deer. Because Alastor was out of his mind at this time, and because he was raised with the idea that everybody who isn't family should just be killed and eaten, he killed the deer and started to eat it raw. Unfortunately for him, a hunter was nearby with a bunch of dogs. The dogs had smelt the deer blood on Alastor and began running to him. Once they got to Alastor, they practically ripped him to shreds. The hunter came over and was able to get the dogs away, seeing that Alastor was still alive. The hunter thought about bringing him to the hospital, but Alastor had been hurt too badly to the point where if he did survive, he probably wouldn't be able to even walk. So the hunter reluctantly shot Alastor in the head, ending his life. We can infer that he was possibly shot in the head due to an X appearing on his forehead in one scene of the pilot. Upon arriving in hell, Alastor was rather confused. However, feeling the sudden rush of power caused him to become ecstatic, which caused him to become one of the few overlords in hell. The reason he is so powerful is because of how many people he has killed. The souls almost got attached to him. This also led him to becoming a deal maker a little bit later on. There is also another thing I want to mention. In the pilot, these shadow forms appear behind or next to Alastor. Many have speculated these to be a part of some voodoo magic he was involved in when he was alive, but I believe it represents the personality he made for himself, the monster that he forced himself to become for his family. You can also see that this shadow has bigger antlers than him. Why am I mentioning the antlers? Well, Mimzy Pop herself has confirmed that Alastor's design has small bits of Wendigo features put in there, and, well, Wendigos in mythology are known to eat humans. Alastor has smaller antlers because while he constantly denied himself to being a monster, he stuck with everything he was taught and continued to kill and eat people anyway. But the shadow that is shown here represents the reputation he built for himself to fool his family, his second personality, the one that was ruthless, bloodthirsty, and ended up getting him killed in the end. And that's about it. That's my whole headcanon story or theory for Alastor. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I know I kind of entered my tinfoil hat territory there because I mostly spoke about things I want to be canon more than what is actually canon. Regardless, I hope someone enjoyed it. Feel free to comment your thoughts on my theory and maybe even your own theories too. Thanks for watching this far.